Okay, so great evening, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us again on another exciting Upgrade Mastery just for you. I'm so excited to have you here again. Thank you so very much. How was your week, right? How was your week? We are still in the season of celebration. This is the Christmas season, and how the plans coming along for you this season. So, guys, what's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? It's always exciting to be here all the time to share with us, to just go over the week, what the things that we learned during the week, the challenges we faced, how we're able to overcome them, and most importantly, the lessons we learned from the week. So this week has been an amazing week. Yes, it's been an amazing week so far. So many things have happened this week, but most importantly, it has been a week where we get to realize that we should no longer limit ourselves. We can think big. Yes, especially as we plan towards the new year, we can think big and trust God to meet those desires that we have, right? And interestingly, there's been a learning curve for me again this week. I learned a lot of things again this week, and I would love to share them. But it's not about me. This is the Upgrade Mastery just for you. So it's about you. How was your week? What did you do this week? What were the things you learned? What were the things that stood out for you this week? That's why we're here this time, so we can have that conversation and perhaps get into the conclusion of what we started last week. You know, last week we were talking about Samson and Delilah and the lessons that stood out for us in that conversation, right? Before we get into that gist of Samson and Delilah, because this is Samson and Delilah part 2, we're going to wrap up from where we left off the last time when we started the conversation in Judges chapter 16. But before we get into that, tell me, how was your week? What did you do this week? What were the things you were able to achieve? What were the challenges you faced? How were you able to overcome them? And what are the things you can look back at this week and say, wow, I did this and I'm super excited about this? Or even the things that you didn't like, things that you didn't appreciate happened for you this week, but you have learned from it. Tell me about your week. If you're not following us on Instagram, you're missing out a great deal, because there are some videos we share every month, every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. It's just to keep your week running, to keep your week going for you early in the morning. So don't miss out on those videos. They're just like 1 minute or 2 minutes, and it's just mind blowing. I'm not going to talk about the videos. I'm only just going to tell you so you can go to Instagram at Wisdom Counseling or Mr. Upgrade, so you can watch those videos. They're just 2 minutes each, and they are amazing. We share every morning, Monday through Friday, just to start your week, your day for you, right? Okay, so while I'm waiting for you to share about your week, what were the things you did, the challenges you faced, and how you were able to overcome them, let's get into the conversation from where we left off last time, where we're talking about Samson and Delilah. One interesting thing about that conversation is the fact that where we left off from last week, we had told you a few things. We shared 4 lessons with you last week, and I'm going to continue from where we stopped last week on those 4 lessons, right? And I'm also going to add some lessons to what we're doing today, right? So give me a minute. Okay, so I'm back, right? Just like I never left. Okay, so last week we had 4 lessons from Samson and Delilah. And those 4 lessons were: number 1, be careful who you love. We told you in that beginning part of Genesis, sorry. Beginning and Genesis just goes into my head. In the beginning part of Judges chapter 16, we're talking about where Samson met Delilah and he loved her. And we said, be careful of who you love. Like I said last week, Delilah wasn't a bad person per se. Delilah was just a person who loved money more than she loved Samson. Remember, Jesus tells us that you cannot love God and Mammon. Right? Delilah happened to love Mammon more than she loved Samson. Right? So you have to be careful the people that you love. You have to be very careful. You know, that's the first lesson we drew out from Samson and Delilah in Judges chapter 16. The second lesson we drew out was that be mindful of those who are very direct. You know, Delilah wasn't going through the corners. She wasn't beating around the bush with Samson. She told Samson straight up, tell me the secret of your strength so that I can inflict you. She wasn't playing around. She wasn't making Samson double guessing. She was straight and direct, telling Samson, tell me the secret of your strength so that I can afflict you. She wasn't just going to mess around. She was very direct. So we said one of the lessons from last week was be mindful of those who are very direct. See, you're the one who think they are just saying their mind. No, they are direct. They are very direct. So you have to be mindful of such people because they are not beating around the bush. They are not mincing words. They are telling you as it is. You are the one who's trying to assume what it's not. They are telling you as it is. Delilah told Samson straight up, tell me the secret of your strength so that I might afflict you. She wasn't hiding it. She was very direct. So we say lesson number 2, be mindful of those who are very direct. Be mindful of them. Right? And then we'll move on from that to lesson number 3, which we say be persistent. Delilah was persistent on Samson. She asked the first time. She asked the second time. She asked the third time. She was persistent. She didn't ask once and say, okay, since he didn't tell me, I give up. No, you must be persistent. Remember in Luke chapter 18, Jesus told us why we ought to pray and not to faint, using the analogy of the unjust judge and the widow who was demanding justice for her son. And scripture says that the unjust judge neither feared God nor man, but because of the persistence of the widow, he had to give her what she wanted. Delilah was persistent. First time, she asked Samson. Samson told her something else. Second time, Samson told her something else. The third time, Samson told her something else. She kept persisting until she weighed out Samson through her persistence. Samson had to give in and told her the actual secret of his strength, which said he's the Nazarene and his hair has never been cut since birth. And Delilah made him sleep on her laps and she cut off all his hair. Lesson number 4. Be mindful of the place where you find comfort. You know, at the first time, Samson should have been concerned. Why is this lady after the secret of my strength? At the second time, Samson should have been worried. Like, I don't understand. Why is she pressing hard on this? By the third time, Samson should have seen the pattern. You know, I always say this a lot. Once is a mistake, twice is a choice, thrice is the pattern. So at the third time, Samson should have seen the pattern and said, no, what's happening here? But because Samson found comfort with Delilah, he did not look at all the clues and all the signs. See, guys, you must pay attention to clues and signs. So you must be mindful of the place where you find comfort, because that comfort may just lead to your own destruction. So be mindful of the places where you're so comfortable, because you have no idea what the plans are that they have towards you. Samson was comfortable with Delilah, and that comfort was his destruction. So we're going to take up from there. Those were the 4 lessons we shared last week. So we're going to look at Judges 16 and take out the other lessons that are there in that chapter 16, and then we'll call this the wrap. Are you excited? Are you ready for this? Let me see some fire in the comment section so I know that you're ready for this part of the conversation. Okay, so let's move. Judges 16. So we're at the point now where verse 20. Then she screamed, the Philistines are here to capture you, Samson. And he woke up and thought, I will do as before. I will shake myself free. but he didn't realize that the Lord has left him. But the Philistines captured him and gouged out his eyes and took him to Gaza, where he was bound with bronze chains and made to grind in the prison. Now, see this. Lesson number 5. The enemy comes after your sight. Lesson number 5. The enemy comes after your sight. 1 minute. Apologies for that. Lesson number 5. The enemy comes after your sight. Now, why did they gouge out his eyes? Have you ever wondered? Why did they have to take out Samson's eyes? Simple. What's good is your strength if you can't see? What good is your strength if you can't see? So they realized that one of the ways we can permanently damage Samson is to take out his eyes. And you know, one of the greatest tools for the believer is sight. No wonder God told Abraham, as far as your eyes can see, will I give to you. The first thing they did when they captured Samson, before they even put him in chains, they gouged out his eyes, they blinded his eyes. Because once you cannot see, it limits what you can do because you can't see. So lesson number 5, the enemy comes after your sight. Comes after your sight. That's why you hear scripture says, whom the God of this world have blinded their eyes from the light of the glorious gospel. Because if their eyes are not blinded, they would see. And if they would see, they will be saved. So the first thing they thought of, Samson, as powerful as he was, his strength is gone because his hair is cut off. Let's make him useless to himself. Let's take out his eyes. You know, when you can see, you are able to think. Remember the story of the prodigal son in Luke 15. He thought that he was now feeding with swine. He saw the situation he was living in now that he had nothing anymore. And then he remembered how hope was. And he said, I will arise and go back to my father. That's because he could still see. If he didn't have eyes to see his current situation, he would have been comfortable feeding with swine. So when they saw they've captured Samson, they took out his eyes. You know, what is worse than somebody who has eyes but no sight? What's worse? Helen Keller says that the greatest disability is for someone to have sight without vision. You know, Helen Keller was blind, but she was able to do phenomenal things in her lifetime, even though she was blind. And that's when she said that the worst disability is to have sight with no vision. So these guys captured Samson, and guess what they did? They took out his eyes. Because what good is a powerful person that doesn't have sight? What good is it? What good is it? Blind Bartimaeus, he didn't have his eyes, he didn't have sight, but when he heard Jesus was passing, he screamed, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stopped. And Jesus asked him to come. And when he came, Jesus said, what do you want? He said that I may receive my sight. See these guys. You have no idea how powerful sight is until you no longer have your sight. You have no idea how powerful sight is until you no longer have your eyes to see. So they said, how do we wreak permanent damage to Samson? And the idea was, let's take out his eyes. Because if Samson has no eyes, he will not be able to do us much harm because he lacks eyes. He won't be able to see. Imagine Samson fighting 1,000 men with the jawbone of an ass when he has no eyes. He will be easily captured and defeated. But because he has eyes, he was able to do that. Imagine he didn't have eyes and he was attacked by the lion. He would not have been able to kill the lion with his bare hands. Imagine carrying the city gate on his shoulder up the mountain because he has eyes to see it and do it. They witnessed all the things that Samson has done, and they could pinpoint one thing they could do to him that will diminish his effect. And that was simple: take out his eyes. I know this sight is not only physical but also spiritual sight. There's the people who have eyes, but they are blind spiritually. They don't see what's happening around them. You have no spiritual sensitivity. Nothing. Nothing. They can't see with the eyes of the spirit. They are blind. You know, Paul prayed in Ephesians that our eyes will be flooded with light. Because as much as you have eyes, you also need light. Then imagine when there is no eyes. Imagine when there is no eyes. Even with the eyes, you still need light. He said that our eyes of understanding will be flooded with light. Flooded with light. So for Samson's case, took out his eyes. First things first, they took out his eyes. And I said here, lesson number 5, because we are continuing from where we left off last time. Lesson number 5, the enemy comes after your sight. Comes after your sight. And when he's able to capture your sight, he captures you. He captures you. When he captures your sight, he captures you. He takes you in captive. Because your sight is gone. It takes you captive. See these guys. See what they did to Samson. So the Philistines captured him and gouged out his eyes and took him to Gaza. Remember, this was the same Gaza where Samson had put the city gate on his shoulder. Remember, the same Gaza where Samson had slept with the prostitute that night, and then when they waited for him to capture him, at the middle of the night, he came to the city gate, put the city gate on his shoulder, and he went up the mountain. But now that his eyes were blind, they took Samson back to that same Gaza. They put him in chains, and they made him to grind grain in the prison. This is the case of how the mighty have fallen. The almighty Samson is not the one that is blind, in chains, and in prison. Hey! Lesson number 7. Lesson number 7. Sorry, lesson number 6. Let me not get ahead of myself. Lesson number 6. Lesson number 6. Comfort can lead to loss of sight, put you in chains, and keep you in prison. Comfort. Samson arrived at this place because he found comfort with Delilah. And that comfort with Delilah led to him losing his eyes, being in chains, and being in prison. So Samson was not just captured. his eyes was taken out. His eyes was not just taken out, he was put in chains. He was not just put in chains, he was put in prison. These three things happened to Samson simply because of comfort he found in Delilah. If you don't learn anything from this series, learn this. Comfort can lead to your loss of sight. You become complacent. You can no longer see that there is more for you. You become complacent, and complacency kills. Put you in chains. You are stuck in a place. Now, chains are not only physical, they are also mental. You are stuck in a place. You are stuck. That's comfort. And they can keep you in prison. So the place you are stuck becomes your prison. You know, Sean Stevenson talks about the prison of the mind. And he says the real prison doesn't have bars. The real prison doesn't have guards. The real prison is in your mind. And sometimes comfort puts you in that prison in your mind. Comfort puts you in that prison in your mind. See, if you are not learning anything, pay attention to these guys. Where are the areas where you have been comfortable? Check it. You may have lost your sight. You may have put yourself in chains, and you may have been in prison in the place where you found comfort. It's time for you to ask yourself brutal questions. Have I turned where I found comfort into a prison? They didn't just capture Samson. Look at what led to his capture. Comfort. And that capture made them take out his eyes, put him in chains, and put him in prison. But the beauty about Samson's story is that it doesn't end that way. You see, one of the lessons you must learn from this is the story doesn't end until you have the song of victory. Hey, your story is not permitted to end until you have sung the song of victory. Your story is not permitted to end. It is not permitted to end until you have sung the song of victory. Samson's story, no matter how bad it looks, it didn't end that way. Hey, lesson number 8. Your story doesn't end like this. Hey, hey. Why am I saying lesson number 8? Lesson number 7, guys. Lesson number 7. Your story doesn't end like this. Your story doesn't end like this. See, guys, Samson's hair was shaved off. His strength was gone. His eyes were gouged out. He lost his sight. He was put in chains. He was put in prison. But his story did not end like this. Listen to this, guys. This is the 3rd point for today and the 7th point in total. Your story does not end like this. Hey! Hey! Your story doesn't end like this. I don't care what it is right now. I don't care what you have gone through in 2024. One thing I know for certain, your story doesn't end like this. It doesn't end like this. Your story doesn't end like this. It doesn't matter what it is looking like right now. Your story doesn't end like this. Once you have this in your consciousness, it changes everything for you. Literally, it changes everything for you. Your story doesn't end like this. I want you to write that down and say to yourself, my story doesn't end like this. My story doesn't end like this. I don't care what you've been through. I don't care what you're going through. What I know for certain for you is that your story does not end like this. This is not how it ends. This is not how it ends. This is not how it ends. You see, Moved on in the Samson story. You know what we're talking about, Samson and Delilah, part 2. And guess what? Scripture says, but before long, his hair began to grow again. Hey, 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 hey. You see why I say your story doesn't end like this? Before long, you shall know me. Mercy. Before long, the hair that they cut off began to grow again. You see, this is where mercy shows up for you. It was the hair that was the secret of Samson's strength, not necessarily his eyes. But they took out his eyes and they forgot to pay attention to his hair. That is mercy speaking for Samson. If they cut off his hair and Samson lost his strength, that means that permanently they should never allow his hair to grow. But guess what? Because they took out his eyes, they forgot his hair. And scripture says that his hair, not long, began to grow again. You know, someone rightly says that God put the strength of Samson in something that can grow again. And that is the definition of the mercies of God. That's the definition of the mercies of God. Samson's hair began to grow again. That's why I told you, lesson number 7, your story does not end like this. They felt that was the end for Samson. They've cut off his hair, they've taken out his eyes, they put him in chains, they put him in prison. So they felt that was the end for Samson. But guess what? Where man says that's the end, that's where God begins for you. I'll say that again. Where man says that's the end, that's where God begins for you. They thought that was the end for Samson. But guess what? That was only just the beginning for Samson. That's only just the beginning, because his hair began to grow again. Like, how did they not pay attention to his hair? If you know that that was the secret of his strength, which Delilah had used, because by the moment they cut off his hair, they noticed that Samson became weak and they could capture him. Why did they allow the hair to grow? See these guys. When mercy starts to speak on your behalf, I don't know how to explain this. But what I know is that because of the mercy of God, your story does not end like this. It doesn't end like this. You may have had a very rough year. Like you may have had a very tough year. But you know this? Because of the mercy of God, the sure mercy of David, your story does not end like this. It doesn't. It doesn't. And see what happens next. This is quite interesting. You see, then the Philistine leaders declared a great festival to celebrate the capture of Samson. The people made sacrifices to their god Dagon and excitedly praised him. Our God had delivered our enemy Samson to us. They gloated as they saw him there in chains. This scourge of our nation, who killed so many of us in our power, is now in our power. Half drunk by now, the people demanded, "Bring out Samson so we can have some fun with him." So he was brought out from prison and made to stand at the center of the temple between the two pillars supporting the roof. Samson said to the boy who was leading him by the hand, "Place my hand against the two pillars. I want to rest against them." By then, the temple was completely filled with people. The 5 Philistine leaders were there, as well as 3,000 people in the balconies who were watching Samson and making fun of him. Remember those 5 guys? Those 5 guys who paid Delilah. $1,000 each to get Samson captured. The 5 of them were still there, and 3,000 people in the balconies watching Samson and making fun of him. Guess what? Lesson number 8. Final lesson for today. No matter what life brings, never forget prayers. No matter what life brings, never forget prayers. You know, Samson was at the point where he had lost his eyes. He's now the mockery and the ridicule of the whole nation. Everybody was laughing at him. Everybody was making fun of him. But guess what? Then Samson prayed to the Lord and said, "Oh Lord Jehovah." You know, all through Samson's life from chapter 13 to chapter 16, it was never recorded that Samson prayed. The question is not that you have never prayed. The question is, will you now pray? It's not that you have never prayed before. That's not the issue. The issue now is, will you now pray? And guess what? Then Samson prayed to the Lord and said, "Oh Lord Jehovah, remember me again. Please strengthen me one more time, so that I may pay back the Philistines for the loss of at least one of my eyes." Then Samson pushed against the pillar with all his might. "Let me die with the Philistines," he prayed. And the temple crashed down upon the Philistine leaders and all the people. So those he killed at the moment of his death were more than those he killed during his entire lifetime. Later, his brothers and other relatives came down to get his body, and they brought him back home and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol, where his father Manoah was buried. And he led Israel for 20 years. See these guys. In 20 years, the people that Samson killed on that day, 3,005, were more than all he killed in 20 years. All because on that final day, Samson prayed. See these guys. No matter what life brings, never forget prayers. All through Samson's life, it was never recorded that Samson prayed. All through. When he killed the lion with his bare hands, when he killed 1,000 men with the jawbone of an ass, when he moved the city gates on his shoulder, all the things that Samson did, when he set foxes on fire and put it in the farmyard of the people he had married from, when he did all that he did, it was never recorded that Samson prayed. Will you not wait till the last minute of your life for you to remember prayer? Will you not wait till the last minute of your life for you to remember prayer? I noticed this, that Delilah was not among these people. That's why I told you that Delilah was not just, she wasn't a prostitute. She took her money she made from betraying Samson and she went on to another client. She was not there where they were celebrating. She had moved on with her life. So these are 8 simple lessons to learn from Samson and Delilah. 8 simple lessons. That is worth your while that you will learn from. And I hope that this has helped you in your journey. It's just one simple chapter, Judges chapter 16, that you can read through again and see how powerful these 8 lessons are for you. Samson prayed. May you not wait to the dying phase of your life for you to remember God and to pray. May that not be your story. But Miss Samson could have prayed from the first time he took out his eyes. Samson could have prayed. May you not wait till it's almost too late for you to remember God. And in this year, 2025, is the year of current form, not previous record. And to stay on form, you need prayers. Oh, hey. Peter said in Acts chapter 6, verse 4, we will give ourselves continually to the ministry of the word and to prayers. To stay on current form, you need prayers. You need the word. To stay on current form, not previous records. Yes, you've done great things in the past. That is previous record. You've heard the seed, that's previous record. But you need to stay on current form. Previous record, Samson was killing 1,000 men, 1,000 soldiers with the jawbone of an ass. That was previous record. But current form, even though he was blind, he could take down 3,005 men and killed more on the last day than he had ever done in 20 years. That is current form. In the year where current form, not previous records, you have to keep praying, guys. You have to keep praying. You don't have to beg people for what God can give you. Hey. You don't have to beg anyone for what God can give you. You have to keep praying. That's how you stay on form. That's how you stay in form. Hey, there's so much to learn from Samson's story. Samson and Delilah too. This is powerful. This is powerful. This is powerful, guys. I don't know who this is for, but in this season, these lessons are things you should pay attention to again for your life. Pay attention to these lessons again. I'll go over them again as we begin to wrap this up because I don't want this to be a long conversation, right? Number one lesson, let's go over it again. Number one lesson, be careful of who you love. Samson loved Delilah, and that was the beginning of his downfall. Be careful of who you love. No wonder Jesus told us that you cannot serve two masters. You either love one or hate the other. Be careful of who you love. Number two, be mindful of those who are very direct. Delilah wasn't going through the corners. Delilah was very direct as Samson. Tell me the secret of your strength so that I might afflict you. She was very direct. Be careful of those who are very direct. Number three, be persistent. Delilah was persistent. She kept hammering at Samson, putting pressure on Samson till Samson cracked and gave in. She was persistent. She asked the first time, she asked the second time, she asked the third time. She was persistent. Lesson number four, be mindful of the place where you find comfort. Be mindful of the place where you find comfort. Samson found comfort in Delilah, and she was his Achilles heel. She became his weakness. Be careful of the place you find comfort. Lesson number five, the enemy comes after your sight. Because as long as you cannot see, there's the limit to what you can do. Because see, if Samson had had his sight, he would not want to die with his enemies. He would not pray that God, let me die with the enemies. No, if he had his eyes, he would still kill them and walk away. But because he has lost his sight, to him, what good is my strength when I have no sight? What good is my strength? So lesson number five, the enemy comes after your sight. Lesson number six, guys, comfort can lead to loss of sight, put you in chains, and keep you in prison. Comfort. Because it was the comfort Samson had with Delilah that took out his eyes, that put him in chains, and kept him in prison. That comfort. So comfort can put you in, can take out your sight, can make you lose your sight, can put you in chains, and can keep you in prison. Lesson number 7. Your story doesn't end like this. Everyone who would have seen Samson would have said, this is the end. This is where Samson's end. How the mighty have fallen. From the great Samson to the one who became the fun for the people, the amusement of the people. How the mighty have fallen. But like I said, lesson number 7, your story doesn't end like this. Samson's story didn't end like this. your story does not end like this. And lesson number 8, no matter what life brings, never forget prayers. No matter what life brings, never forget prayers. And these are 8 simple lessons from Samson and Delilah part 2. And I hope that you have learned something from this that you can apply to your everyday life. Because the essence of what we do here is something that you can practice. And like we always say, the proof of learning is practice, and the proof of practice is results. So guys, I want to say a very big thank you for you joining us today on this conversation. As always, I know you have been blessed. I know you have been inspired. And like we always say, there's always more on the upgrade side of life. And that's why we encourage you to leave good behind so that you can upgrade. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you. Have a great time.